It was an old house, the kind that had seen too many years, too many memories, and perhaps too many secrets. Nestled deep within the forest, miles away from the nearest town, it loomed over the landscape with a silent menace, its wooden boards creaking with every gust of wind that passed through the decaying rafters. The locals called it the Hollow House, a name born from the eerie hollow sound that echoed through its empty halls. No one in the town remembered who had built it, or why it had been abandoned. The stories surrounding the house were many, but none were as chilling as the tale of the last room on the left. Chapter 1. The Invitation. Mira and her friends had always been curious. It was this curiosity that had led them to the edge of the forest one brisk autumn evening, armed with nothing but flashlights, a map, and a sense of adventure. The old hollow house had long been a subject of their conversations, a place they all dared each other to visit, but never did. Until tonight. "I heard someone lived there once," Mira said as they approached the overgrown path leading to the house. "An old family, back in the 1800s. They say the last room on the left is cursed." "Cursed?" Jason, the skeptic of the group, scoffed. "It's probably just another ghost story to keep people away. Or maybe some homeless guy living there now." "Maybe," Mira replied, though the chill in her bones suggested otherwise. "But no one who enters that room ever comes out." As they walked, the trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The path grew narrower, more treacherous, until finally, the hollow house came into view. It was worse than they had imagined. The house was a crumbling wreck, its windows shattered, and the door hanging off its hinges. Yet, despite its decay, there was something compelling about it, as if the house itself were alive, waiting. "Let's get this over with," Emily whispered, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. The group cautiously made their way up the steps, the wooden boards groaning under their weight. As they stepped inside, the smell of damp and decay filled their nostrils. The air was thick, oppressive, and the shadows seemed to dance along the walls. They explored the house room by room, each one more unsettling than the last. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and the floors littered with debris. Yet, despite the disrepair, everything seemed untouched, as if the house had been frozen in time. Finally, they reached the hallway on the second floor. At the end, there it was, the last room on the left. Chapter 2. The Doorway. Mira's heart pounded as they approached the door. It looked like any other door in the house, but there was something different about it. The wood was darker, the handle more worn, as if countless hands had gripped it in desperation. "Are we really doing this?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "We came this far," Mira replied, though she wasn't sure if it was bravery or fear driving her forward. "We have to see what's inside." Jason pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly in protest. The room beyond was pitch black, the darkness almost palpable. Mira shone her flashlight inside, revealing a small, empty room. There was nothing unusual about it, except for the overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to emanate from the walls. "See? Nothing to be scared of," Jason said, stepping inside. But as soon as he crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. The others jumped, rushing to the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Jason! Jason, are you okay?" Mira shouted, banging on the door. There was no answer. "Jason, this isn't funny," Emily cried, panic rising in her voice. Inside the room, Jason stood frozen. The air was thick, suffocating. He felt a cold hand brush against his neck, and he spun around, but there was no one there. The walls seemed to close in on him, the darkness growing deeper, more oppressive. And then he heard it, a whisper, soft and sinister, coming from the corner of the room. He turned his flashlight towards the sound, but it flickered and died, plunging him into darkness. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, until it was a cacophony of voices, all screaming in agony. Jason tried to scream, but no sound came out. He felt something cold and slimy wrap around his ankle, pulling him down. He struggled, but the grip tightened, dragging him into the floor as if it were quicksand. The last thing he saw was the door swinging open, Mira's terrified face peering inside, before he was swallowed by the darkness. Chapter 3. The Curse. Mira and Emily stood in horror as the door slowly creaked open. The room was empty. Jason was gone. "We need to get out of here," Emily whispered, backing away. But Mira couldn't move. She was rooted to the spot, staring into the darkness of the room. She felt it too now, the presence, the malevolent force that had taken Jason. It was watching her, waiting for her to step inside. "We have to find him," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Emily grabbed her arm. "Mira, please, we need to go." But it was too late. The door began to close again, this time pulling Mira towards it. She struggled, but an invisible force was dragging her in, just as it had done to Jason. Emily screamed, trying to pull Mira back, but the force was too strong. Mira was yanked into the room, the door slamming shut with a final, ominous thud. Epilogue: The Last Room. The Hollow House stood silent once more, its secrets buried deep within its decaying walls. The last room on the left was still, its door slightly ajar, as if waiting for the next curious soul to venture inside. In the town below, the legend of the last room on the left grew, fueled by the disappearance of the three friends. The locals knew better than to go near the house now, especially as night fell. And so, the Hollow House continued to stand, a dark sentinel in the woods, guarding the cursed room that no one ever left. But on quiet nights, when the wind howled through the trees, some claimed they could hear faint whispers coming from the direction of the house, desperate, pleading voices, trapped forever in the last room on the left.